Hi, I'm Amy Lewis with NetApp SolidFire here on Pop-Up Tech Talks, and we've got Patrick as our guest today. Patrick, can you please introduce yourself?
You bet, Amy. Patrick Hubbard, head geek of SolarWinds.
Excellent. So how many Cisco Lives have you been to?
I'm starting to feel a bit like a fossil. So I'm 11 in the US and 6 in Europe.
Okay, you're like 3 times as many Cisco Lives as I've been at. That's impressive.
Okay, but I also kind of get dragged as a vendor too. I mean, I'm becoming more and more of an attendee where I spend more of my time actually in session and not quite so much in the booth, but I can't say that I've gotten to just fund every one of them myself.
So with that kind of perspective, what are some of the trends you've seen from where things started to where things are now? What are you seeing happening in our industry?
Well, my perspective is a little bit tainted in that I started as a developer and then came to IT from that, then moved into product management, and then now I'm kind of back to applied technology and evangelism, right? So I spend most of my time on the keyboard. I spend the rest of it talking to customers and looking at what they are actually doing. So like we are always talking to customers, not about what they want to do, but what do they need right now. And so one of the great measures is, especially for enterprise, especially kind of medium size, is it's a really great measure of what's really going on. Not what do they hope to do in 2018, 2019, but what do they have to do right now. So the move to, not to hybrid IT, they didn't intend to that. They intended to move to cloud, or they intended to adopt SaaS services, or they intend to unify their storage architecture, right? Or they have performance considerations that are driving things like flash that they would have never considered before. Right. But that change is coming from angles that they never would have expected, right? Once upon a time, they were really technical, and they were thinking this is all about hardware, this is all about infrastructure in their data center, and now it's really about software, and it's software actuated everything. You remember SDN, a lot of buzz, big hype. Now SDN is just a thing, right? So whether you're talking about hyperconvergence or ACI or any of the other technologies, containers, for example, the container infrastructure itself, those are now just networking services or something that you configure as a part of the application, and then the framework takes care of it. Well, it's SDN, but you don't go buy SDN anymore now. It's provided as a part of the foundation. Well,
how quickly we moved from the new shiny thing to the understood, like you're saying. You know, it's just, of course that's what you would do.
Right, like I don't think anyone gets really excited when you say cloud anymore. Cloud not only is a thing now, it's been a thing really for 2 years. And this is that first year where you're really beginning to see IT under pressure from management, where management has seen actual savings from cloud. They've worked past regulatory compliance issues with cloud. They've been able to see that it's as secure, and if it's implemented correctly, in some cases it's more secure than some of the things that they were running on-prem, where they effectively were a giant honeypot of PCI data to come and get it, right? So now, everyday admins are under pressure to implement cloud quickly by management. So it's sort of flipped before, where it was, you know, people who were really geeky and into technology and the new greatest thing were sort of pushing that as a solution. Well, now it's old school IT looking at spreadsheets for budget management, pushing cloud down into IT. And so there's sort of this dichotomy where you have some admins who are really excited about programmatic infrastructure and software actuation, and there are other ones who are kind of dragging their heels. Maybe they're a little more in the old, you know, if I can config it, you know, then it will work. I can slay everything on the network from green screen from config. And that can be a dicey conversation to have with management, especially as, you know, management is really getting on board. That can be a real negative in a career.
So what do you think 2016 holds? If we've had the year of VDI already, if we've had the year of cloud, what do you think 2016 is the year of?
If I say DevOps and continuous integration, continuous delivery, I know that sounds really buzzy. And again, I'm a geek and I love to program, and autonomous policies that operate on the weekends when I am resting are just something I'm really excited about. But we're beginning to see the tendrils of that even in small and medium-sized business, where they're not going to be full agile, they're not going to be doing Scrum and stand-up and the rest of it, but they are beginning to see the best practices and the advantages of things like QA. Like QA is something that comes from software, right? If you're hardware, you don't really think about QA. You config, maybe you're going to do you smoke test, or maybe you have a load test against physical infrastructure. But with software, QA is always a part of it because you assume that it's never perfect. Like, you know, the kind of the hardware life cycle is it's got to be pretty much perfect because you can't replace it. Where software, we're going to ship it early with new features and then fix it over time and 10,000 known bugs, right?
Some unexpected features, if you will.
But if you are willing to adopt that as a way of approaching IT, that you are going to use innovative policies. You're going to change the way your business processes work. You're going to take advantage of automation in a way that you hadn't, and it doesn't need to be perfect. And you think about risk, and you think about quality assurance, like, can I test it before, after it's deployed, now it's running, do I also then run a test on it? Well, now you're actually in something that looks very much like a continuous delivery process and DevOps.
So interesting. So I love hearing that in some ways it's a mind shift we're going to be going through. And speaking of that, sort of my last question, with this Pokemon Go craze, I feel like IoT is really here. Do you see that this is the year where IoT becomes less of a three-letter buzzword, less of a three-letter acronym, as we like to say, and reality?
When I walk into a hotel room and it knows my temperature, it knows the color temperature of white light that I like, and it adjusts, and I can charm devices walking through public spaces, I will feel like IoT is here. But I am a firm believer in IoT, and I've been doing a lot of development for IoT and experimenting with it. And so, like, for example, I think this is a year where we also realize that IoT is dirty. Like, IoT is potentially worse than BYOD networks, where, you know, if I have an iPhone, I can be reasonably sure that a number of engineers were thinking about security, right? But if I have a $5 gizmo or a $1 gizmo that's sitting in my network that came out of a container in a one-off batch of a million units, right, that's never going to be field upgraded because it's just a disposable piece, how do you secure that on your network? So, like, in my house, actually, I've got 35 IoT IP addresses, and I moved it onto its own VLAN and subnet, and it can access the internet. There's a firewall for services inside my regular network, but I have come not to trust IoT devices at all. But that's okay, because to get to where IoT can bloom, we have to be able to be really inviting about it. Like, the old ways of qualifying a device. What's my update strategy? How does it interact with other things on my network? We aren't going to be able to do that with IoT at cost. IoT at the 20 billion or 100 billion or however many trillions it is, you know, that are going to be on the network by tomorrow. The date keeps going up. But those devices are going to be disposable and cheap in ways that we can't understand yet, and so rethinking security for IoT is something that really is beginning to happen in 2016. I think it's going to be pretty big for 2017.
I love it. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Amy, for having me.
And we'll see you next time on Pop-Up Tech Talks.